I am God, God, I am sovereign, sovereign, I am free, free. I am God, God, I am sovereign, sovereign, I am free, free.
As humanity traverses the collective dark night of the soul, we came together and decided to step up amongst so much insanity, to be an authentic, heart-centered and unified voice in sharing our personal stories and experiences, with the hope of inspiring and awakening others into their true nature as the eternal God light and love that we are. In this critical time of evolution, the time is now to choose peace and harmlessness, to seek alignment with truth and courage. The time is now to cultivate our soul, to understand our multi-dimensional selves, whilst guarding and protecting our minds. Let us break down the walls of separation and classification. Let's reconnect our hearts to the oneness. Will you take steps to heal yourself, to choose pro-human values? Our inner work is to free ourselves from pain and delusion, so we can live with clarity and coherence in service to others and our communities. What is the agenda of the anti-human controllers? What is the agenda of divide and conquer? Imagine what life could be like right now if you lived on this planet in harmless actions. How can we stand up for our inherent human rights? Can we do the right thing in the face of tyranny, in reclaiming our sovereign freedom, demanding truthful information and full disclosure? For one and for all, we are the Truth Pulse.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Truth Pulse. Thank you for joining us. And my name is Sonia, and I will be hosting today's podcast. And of course, we have Trinity and we have Linda also joining us as part of the Truth Pulse. And today's topic is Sexual Misery Part 2. And we're going to be discussing the Universal Time Matrix. So some information about that in order to better understand our galactic history involving our fifth dimensional planet known as Tara and her sister planet Tiamat. And we will learn how they were both exploded by warring intruder races and how their destruction relates to the sexual misery programming perpetrated on planet Earth today. And the second half is our Trinity here is going to be sharing her personal story involving sexual misery. Before we continue, I wanted to let the listeners know that the Energetic Synthesis Ascension Glossary has been referenced to bring you the following information. So thank you to Lisa and Tomas for this information and to the Guardian teams. So let's first discuss what is a universal time matrix. And I want to say something. It came to me, I got an aha hit just to suddenly say this. I'm going to present this information that is complex, taken from the Ascension Glossary, and it's kind of heavy. And to me, I wanted to let the listeners know it was like learning a foreign language, learning a new language. It's something that did not come easy to me. I have heard about it before, but it was only, hearing someone else speak about it. When I actually started researching this and putting the pieces together and internalizing it, it helped me to comprehend it. But I want to say how difficult it was. So if you're hearing this information and it's going whoosh right over your head and you're like, Tiamat, universal time matrix, if you're here, if you're feeling that way, you're not alone. I just want to let you know. Does that resonate with either of you? Did you want to say anything, Linda or Trinity, on that?
I can add exactly that as well. It's I was thinking the other day that obviously going into Ascension Glossary, you know, our ES community, learning all this information, it's personally myself, I feel I've got so many implants still to remove, so many blockages still, so that I can tap into that information as a living library type of information, rather than just seeing it. It's like you said, Sonia, it is like a new language for the conscious mind as it is now, with all the filters that are being put on it, and we're all clearing them. So I'm in the same shoes. I'll be learning a lot today as well through our podcast. So yeah, totally resonate with that. It's a new language, and it's like all the mind control that has been laced upon us is preventing us to actually taking something in which is very natural, which is so part of us, which is actually recorded. It's recorded in our cells, it's recorded in the Akashic, it's everywhere. And yet, you know, because of mind control, it's so not easy to tap into it. So I just want to reassure myself and everyone, our listeners, to say that this information one day will become accessible to us with ease. It's just, we just need to keep working on dismantling these mind control systems on the planet and within ourselves. So yeah.
Well said. Yeah.
I agree. It does become easier. I think the more you can, you know, clear yourself out, the more it becomes easy to digest this information. But also that it's like a living library. I just like to add that it's constantly evolving. You know, we always have more and more information added to the glossary as more memories come forth to all of us. You know, I'm sure that there's many people, you know, with our awakening consciousness that are remembering, you know, who they are and what our galactic history is. And this Ascension Glossary, I think, is such an important information source. There are hundreds upon thousands of hits on the Ascension Glossary every single week. So, you know, it's not the be all and end all, I'd say that, you know, because it's, you know, there are lots of the entries, you know, maybe have been 10 years old or older. And, you know, just for this last year alone, you know, there's always more information coming out. So, you know, our beloved Lisa and Thomas, you know, when they have time, they add more, you know, when they can. So yeah, I just wanted to, you know, put that out there as well, you know, and just so grateful for this information that's there. And, you know, I sort of use it as a divination tool in it as well. You know, it's called like a daily pick that I just go on there and, you know, you just click on random page, and without fail, it will always tell. It just hits the nail right on the head of, you know, what is coming up for me that week or that day. You know, it's like, it could be anything, and then it will resonate. It's like, yeah, okay, that's what I needed to read right now. So, you know, and it also helps jog the memory as well when you start uncovering memories within your soul group, within, you know, your different levels of consciousness. So yeah, just to say that as well.
That's well said. Yeah. Yeah. Like the divination tool. Yeah, that's interesting. I've used it like that before too. Was there anything else to add on that before we move on? Okay, so then let's dive into the definition and some information about what is a universal time matrix. Okay, and again, I'm going to reiterate, we're going to go into some detail on this because we want to see how this all fits in with the explosion of planet Tara and planet Tiamat, and how it relates to sexual misery, our topic today. So our planet Earth exists in three main formed identities in this universal time matrix. So we've got 3D Earth, which is called Earth or Terra, T-E-R-R-A. And then we've got 5D Earth, which is called Tara, T-A-R-A. And then we've got the 7D Earth called Gaia. And these are all planet Earth at different stages of evolution in the timelines. Okay. So now a universal time matrix is a map of all of the timelines in which consciousness moves. And they are taking place simultaneously or all at the same time within our entire time matrix. So past, present, future. And that's pretty trippy, right? If you think about it. They're all taking place at the same time simultaneously. And our universal time matrix is comprised of 5 density levels, which hold spectrums of frequency in groups of 3. Okay, that's a mouthful. Okay. And they manifest as platforms of consciousness, perception, and expression. These are also known as harmonic universes. So just bear with me a little bit. I'm going to give more information and kind of let it sink in. Now, to explain in further detail, the harmonic universes contain various levels or densities. Density levels define the location in the timeline where that aspect of the human being or life form is having a consciousness experience. So although the negative alien agenda, we've talked about that before, okay, human, non-human participants, okay, which has done the various things to enslave humanity, the negative alien agenda. They have inserted mind control programming, amnesiac barriers, you've got the mind wiping going on. We've got frequency fences, so we can't elevate into the higher frequencies, the higher dimensions, connecting into Godhead. We've got alien implants to suppress our ability to see, to feel, to direct our own consciousness. With all of that said, nevertheless, okay, we as human beings, our divine human blueprint expresses ourselves through various spiritual layers of our light body. These are known as stations of identity. This is also referred to as multidimensional. We've mentioned this before as well. We as divine humans, we are multidimensional beings. Okay, so we're not just this in the 3D realm that we're seeing ourselves and, you know, are expressing ourselves within. We're multidimensional beings. So a little bit more information now. If we break down the 5 levels or density levels that we as humans express ourselves through, they are as follows. In the first harmonic universe, it is comprised of 1D, 2D, 3D, or dimensional, D meaning dimensional, layers known as the personality matrix. And this is also referred to the Earth matrix. The second harmonic universe is comprised of 4D, 5D, 6D layers of the soul matrix, or the Tard matrix. Now remember, there's 5 layers. So the third harmonic universe is comprised of 7D, 8D, 9D, or 9th dimensional layers of the monadic matrix, Gaian matrix. Then we move into the 4th harmonic universe, and it is comprised of the 10D, 11D, 12D layers of the Christos avatar matrix, and this is defined as the future Earth blueprint in its crystalline form of the Aramatena or Aurora Earth matrix. And before I explain the last one, the 5th layer, there are some terms again, you know, that you can do further research on, as Linda pointed out, ascensionglossary.com. And you can research some of these terms. You can research Aramatena, it's in there, and etc. So we're not going to bombard you with every little detail today. This is a process for all of us. So just giving you little tidbits here. The 5th harmonic universe is comprised of 13th, 14th, and 15th dimensional layers of the Rishi matrix, or the threefold founder flame, also known as the God Sovereign Free Flame. Now in this layer, there is no dimensionalization into matter forms here. Okay? There is no planetary body or human forms at this layer. Okay? In this fifth density, as the consciousness does not manifest into matter, this area is called pre-matter. And these layers are also known as the cosmic trinity of the Godhead, from which all biological forms are created in all of the harmonic universes that we just discussed. I wanted to break down the fifth harmonic universe just a little bit further, and then I'm going to ask for some comments, if there are any, from Linda and Trinity. So, to go into a bit of detail with this last layer, the three primal light and sound fields, which hold the ray expressions for these cosmic layers, the fifth harmonic universe. Okay, we have the 13th dimension. Now, this is the cosmic Holy Mother principle known as Mother Arc. This is the aqua blue ray, and with a feline Elohim genetic base, and its architecture is modifying the planetary grid to transmit levels of the Sophionic love, wisdom, and female coding to correct mother-to-child RNA, DNA records within the divine blueprint of humanity. Okay, so this is what's happening now. This is the Holy Mother coming back into the planet, onto the planet. This is the overriding that's happening. This is the restructuring. This is the recoding that's happening. This is what the Holy Mother, the 13th dimensional ray, aqua blue ray, is doing right now. This no time chakra is located 12 inches below our feet. We move into the 14th dimension. This is the cosmic son and daughter principle, known as Christos Sophia. This is the golden ray. This has an avian seraphim genetic base. This chakra acts as the top lid of the 12th dimensional shield, and when activated creates an additional gold buffer field called the golden fleece buffer. Just some interesting tidbits about that. And this no time chakra is about 3 feet above our head. And the last is the 15th dimensional ray. This is the cosmic Holy Father principle known as Father Arc. And this is the violet. I always get tongue twisted when I say those words. Violet magenta ray with a cetacean whale aquiferian genetic base. It is compassion in action towards all living things. So when we are in right relationship to our masculine principle, we are grounded, we are stable, we are secure, with a strong sense of inner core self. So this is the Holy Father aspect, not the false king of tyranny aspect that we have been programmed to understand. Okay? And as it is explained in the glossary, I don't have any more info on this at this time, but this no time chakra is located in deep space. It doesn't say any more information as to where it's located within the light body structure. So it's located in deep space. So to finish up on that, to round it up, the cosmic trinity that I've just described, the 13, 14, 15 dimensions, this is the cosmic trinity, and they protect the promise of ascension for all living things, traveling in the universal time matrix. And by ensuring that they are eventually able to return to their source frequency and spiritual home at the end of the evolution cycles. Okay, we're in that right now. And we're returning back home into the 0 point field after completing this time matrix evolution cycles. And we're returning to the areas of the non-dimensionalized realms. And this is where the free cosmic Christos citizens travel, and they live in the highest creations that exist in the eternal God worlds. So this is what the Ascension is about. So that was a lot of information, but I thought it would be interesting. And we've said it before, we're learning right along with all of you. We take in this information, we try to internalize it. And like Linda, you were saying too, the more we internalize it, it gets easier, and it starts, and I think Trinity, you said too, it starts to open up little pockets, little doorways, and it allows in the information. We're dealing with some heavy mind control, mind wiping, you know, and then presenting this information is helpful because you take it in just a little bit at a time. So was there anything that came to either of you that you wanted to add or comment on?
I would just like to say the cosmic Christos citizens that was mentioned, they are here and they are helping us. You know, they're helping the planet to ascend. You know, by each passing year, passing month, passing week, there is, you know, we are having a lot of help and support, and I think this is what's happening now, is that the NAA are fighting back as much, you know, as they possibly can. But you know, they're in a losing battle. You know, this is a war over consciousness. But just to add, you know, this, you know, it's spiraling. You know, it just keeps on spiraling around and around until now we're in this evolution cycle where, you know, it's the end game. So you know, we've just got to hang in there as and just know that there is God's plan. You know, it's returning to 0 point. I think it's turning back to that point in time, back with our, you know, Andromeda, back with our other sister universes. So yeah, we will get there. We've just got to hang in there. So I'd just like to add that.
Yeah, it sure is intense right now. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And it's a very important message because I speak to people as a therapist and generally just speak to people around, and people are scared, you know, even those who are more or less positive and see through all this BS that is going on with this negative alien agenda to do with the pandemic and everything. Even those people, they're still scared of the future, scared of not knowing. So in a way, what Linda said, I suppose, it is a message of hope, and I think it's important to sort of log it in, to know that we are being helped, things are being dismantled, the grids, you know, the reversal grids are being tackled, and we do have sort of forces on our side who are helping. So it's a message of hope that although it seems like it's very chaotic and intense at the moment, the good news is things are being done behind the scenes that are helping us for the positive outcome. So I want to bring this message of hope. There was a lovely podcast somebody posted on our ES community side that, you know, just basically encouraging, just keep grounded, stay focused, try not to go much into fear, know that we are being helped, things are being dismantled, you know, just stay higher than fear. Don't be fearful. Trust. Yeah, connect to that heart frequency. So yeah, thank you, Linda. That was good reminder, because you know we're all in this uncertainty and seeming uncertainty, and
yeah, good point for that. It's been said here today that, you know, gosh, you know, we try to stay positive and, you know, we'll do our best, you know, but really surely would be helpful if we can connect in, you know, and this is the process, this is the peeling away of the layers, and you know, and that takes time. But I want to say something that is something positive that might be helpful, and that is that if I look back on where I was before I started researching this information and peeling the layers away and healing the different levels of mind control and implants and possession, because I've been doing a lot of work on myself over the past 5-6 years. And it's sometimes you can't notice it as much if you're in the thick of it, but if you try to look back and see where you were before and you compare it to now, I can say right now, speaking in this moment, I feel so much more coherency. It is true that that I'm not fully awakened. It is true that I don't have a direct, I want more of a direct knowing experience to be able to feel more intensely, of course, right into the Godhead, because that's our divine inherent right as human beings. That's what's supposed to happen, and it was removed from us. It was taken from us. So that's the process in getting that back. I can feel, on certain levels for sure. Thankfully, I'm not fully awakened, so that I'm continuing to work on that. But I will say that the energy that I'm feeling right now in this moment with myself and with both of you, with you, Linda, with you, Trinity, is that there's been a shift. That is something that it's heartening. It helps me to feel hopeful, because the changes can be subtle, but like you mentioned, Linda, the beings are here on the planet right now. I can sense it, because if they weren't, it would be holy hell worse. For people who are standing up, speaking the truth, for people who are trying to reclaim, so the guardian teams, in what I can sense personally, they are helping, because I can feel the coherency in my voice. I can feel it in my energy. I can feel it in both of you. So I hope that is helpful, because it is true. It's very true.
Yeah. It's another message of hope, Sonia. Yeah. It is very positive news. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And let's move on to a bit of galactic history now. Okay, and we're going to talk about the explosion of our fifth dimensional planet Tara first, and then we'll move into Tiamat. Okay, but let's explain Tara first. Just a bit of information. So we have learned through the information that we've just discussed with the harmonic universes that Tara was a fifth dimensional planet, and she's located in the second harmonic universe. Okay. So I wanted to reiterate a point because I think it helps to wrap our minds around this, that the three main formed identities of within this universal time matrix, okay, for planet Earth, the three main forms. We have the 3D Earth, and that's called Earth or Terra, depending on, I guess, where you're from. The 5D Earth called Tara, T-A-R-A, and the 7D Earth called Gaia. And these are all planet Earth at different stages of evolution in the timelines. Because what? Because they were exploded. There had to be a reseeding. And so this is what we're talking about. And or there's other various reasons for that, but these are the three main formed identities, okay, within the universal time matrix. So many millions of years ago, okay, a bit of history here, several founder meta-terrestrial or extraterrestrial races from this universal system and beyond into the omniverses, okay, came together at the royal houses of Lyra in the 12th dimension. This meeting was for the purpose of contributing their most advanced genetic material in the creation of our first world, which is known as fifth dimensional planet Tara. That was interesting to me, because when you start learning this information, it's like, oh, Tara was the first world. That was the first world that was created. something that I did not know until I researched. Okay, now how are the Syrian rebellions and the Anunnaki lineages refused to acknowledge the authority of the founders or refused to acknowledge the law of one principles? And this led into the cataclysm and the sequence of events which eventually destroyed planet Tara. Okay, it was exploded. They exploded her. And during the final stages of destruction, the planetary consciousness held within her exploded fragments were pulled into a black hole and came out the other side into an area which is effectively the lowest creation realms, the underworld layers of the Milky Way system. So the entirety of planet Tara's fragments and all of her species were pulled into this lowest density of the time matrix and reformed themselves as they emerged into the instruction set, formed into our solar system and our planet Earth that we know of today. Was there anything you'd like to both add on that? That was short, of course, so many details happened with that, but I didn't want to keep it too long. I just wanted to give some tidbits on that. Did either of you have something to add to that?
Just say that what you mentioned again, the living library. I mean, to me, this is just always makes me feel a bit emotional, because like originally, like what you said, as per what you mentioned, the founder races came and contributed this diverse genetics to make this planet as a beautiful, diverse living library, and obviously seeded the guardians, the keepers of that library, which I would understand angelic humanity was meant to be the guardians and the keepers of that library. Yes, so I mean, how incredible that is to come back to the very root of our original purpose of angelic humans, of our human template. What was that purpose? That purpose was being the guardians and the keepers and the protectors of this beautiful, diverse living library. How incredible that is, and of course all that history that followed, all those cataclysms and wars and destructions that followed, brought us to this sort of that we are now at the point where we fight each other, you know, kill each other, and are known in the galactic circles as a warring race, as originally we were not meant to be. Our original blueprint is protectors, keepers, beholders of the sovereign law of one. You know, that is our original template. So to me, it's always very it's beautiful, but it's also sad. It's like, it's a mixture of feeling, because I guess I'm clearing my own memories associated with that betrayal or whatever happened on Tara. I think for me is always emotional, because the desecration, the explosion of something that is very beautiful and was created with such love and with such care and with such purpose that other, you know, other races could come and partake in this beautiful diversity, and also possibly even contribute their genetics and exchange our, you know, that could have been such a different scenario had all those intrusions haven't happened. So it's just, I suppose it's just a rhetoric. I just wanted to say that, to express a little bit that how much I hold our dear Tara, you know, in the heart. Yeah, it's and she's still accessible. I mean, Tara, I guess, as far as I understand, you could still access the pre-fall Tara timelines. Linda, is that right? Sonia, am I?
Yeah.
I don't want to mislead anyone. I'm learning. I'm still getting, but I remember it's been mentioned that you know, because it's a you know, we're in a hologram, everything is recorded. So I suppose the pre-fall Tara timelines are we're still able some of us are still able to access them and perhaps recreate that, rebuild that original template which was there. So I suppose I just want to say to all our listeners that our original blueprint is beautiful. We are not killers. We are not, you know, we were not designed as a warring race. We were designed as protectors and keepers. And empathy was one of our, you know, great sort of blueprint is empathy and the heart. So this is what the genetic hybridization, this is what the negative alien agenda has turned us into. If we look, you know, how we fight, how we keep willing to kill each other, go to wars. I mean, not all of us, but humanity.
Yeah.
It's alien to us. It's not our by default. So
yes,
it's good to come back to our roots, and of course it's been hidden from us. Nobody's telling us about the Tara explosion. No history books, no geography books. Nobody will tell us this. Everything's hidden, everything's obfuscated from us, so that we could just have it, you know, live in our little bubble that you know.
yeah,
So
yes, very well said. Thank you for that. It's important to recognize our true origins, like you pointed out. That was very helpful.
Thank you.
And will it be true to say that all of us who are incarnated, I mean, when I say all, I mean those of us who in service to others, not service to self, those of us who are consciously willing to participate, or maybe even unconsciously, that in a sense what we are doing here, we are collecting those pieces of exploded Tara. Because if our consciousness existed on Tara at that time and it's exploded, then the pieces of our consciousness also will be stuck in those exploded pieces of Tara, whatever happened. So maybe some of us are here to recover these pieces, collect them like a jigsaw puzzle, to bring these pieces. We're almost like walking and collecting these pieces in order to bring and reconnect to that original template of wholeness.
Isn't that related to the Paladorian Covenant?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the reclaiming the, you know, the lost souls of Tara. So this is what's been happening for the last 3-4 years.
Jeez.
Because
But
like as a
no, just to reiterate what you both said, reclaiming the lost souls of Tara, to wrap our minds around it for people who are new to this information. The planet exploded. So what does that mean? Inhabitants on the planet exploded too. You've got soul fragments here, there, and everywhere. You know, and that's what it means. It means reclaiming those soul parts, because we can't ascend into wholeness. We can't fully awaken. We can't integrate, you know, all of our bodies, all of our aspects without these lost fragments. We need to bring all those back. That's what it means.
Yes. As I understand, the covenant of Paleador is when you know there is a group of souls that come here to also not just collect their own pieces, or maybe they don't need to collect their pieces because they already moved on to different dimensions, different harmonic universes. They already came from a different harmonic universe to assist humanity, to assist others to bring their pieces together. So I think the covenant of Paleador is like almost, you know, the advanced races at that time, when they saw that destruction, they said, okay, we're going to do something about it. We're going to create this sort of a specific, you know, specific seeding where, you know, they will have a mission to just come at the end, you know, on the ascension cycle and help humanity to collect those pieces, or wake them up, or you know, do some kind of collective work for them. or help them a little bit to bring that, because this process of collecting pieces, it's not that easy. You've got to be, you've got to be conscious. You're going to try to consciously do it. It's kind of like it involves work. And because we're so mind controlling here, we don't even know that we are supposed to be doing this work. So I guess that the covenant of Polydor was like to bring a specific task force here who would just start doing this work and helping and activating others to do it. Yeah. It's a specific.
Also those start seeds that are activated during this time cycle to actually help with the mission as well, like it's called the Christos mission.
Yeah, to help those who got stuck here.
And also to help the universal time matrix. So, with all the harmonic layers, if you think your light body exists in all these harmonic layers, so your different stations of identity can be working on these harmonic layers without your 3D self actually knowing about it. It's just mind-boggling. So, and then the NAA, of course, had the Luciferian covenant, which was to stop the Paladorian covenant from happening. And when people are asking, well, what happened to the planet? Well, basically, what happened with the Tauran planet when it exploded as well is it exploded into 12 different pieces. And also, we are lied to about that. We're only told that we have 7 planets within our solar system, and there's actually 12, and the truth that's been coming out, about Nibiru and about Maldek, and the sun is a planet, a sun star is a planet too. So yeah, there's so much to it, and it's all being discovered, and it's an exciting time to retrieve these memories and reclaim our pieces. So, we have that to thank for as well.
Yeah, it's true. You're right. It's true. Okay, well said. Thank you very much for those comments. So if we feel that we're okay with moving on from the Tara bit, we're going to move in now to the Tiamat explosion. Okay, and so the 5D Earth planet Tara was a sister planet to another 5D planet known as Tiamat. Okay, they were a sister planet. And Tiamat, as a 5D planet, she also is, an aspect of her was a living goddess of the 10th gate, previously known as Sumeria, but today is known as Iran. So I hope that I understood that correctly. I researched it and hope I'm saying that correctly. That was my understanding when I read that. So not only was she a 5D planet, an aspect of her is also, the living goddess of the 10th gate, at that time known as Sumeria, today known as Iran. So I'll say a little more, and please, if you want to say it now, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to add it's an important point when, on this earth as well, we can connect into, the Tauran timeline and Tiamat memories. As you mentioned, the 10th Stargate of Iraq and Iran. So, there are many Stargates on the planet that are also being cleared and woken up and activated. So that's a really important point. Just to say that if people are, on their travels or in their different countries, they start feeling like a deja vu. It's like when I went to Ireland, I do really feel that Ireland is a big Tauran piece. I think they call it the Emerald Isle, and it's something about it. It's, people say like Atlantis pieces are in Hawaii. So, it's scattered around the place. So I just like to bring that into people's awareness, of our connection of, there's so much, I won't go into like the goddess aspects, but, it's just a very important point to be aware of.
Well, and
sorry. The Sophianic consciousness sorry, yeah, the is what I want to try to explain is the Sophianic consciousness that has been coming back onto the planet with Holy Mother. And so, the activation of the divine feminine, the divine masculine with the Holy Trinity. So, it's a very important aspect to think of like the Sophianic body that's within the planet that is being activated through her ley lines, through the grids, and through the stargates.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's helping to reclaim these pieces of Tara and Tiamat.
Ah, yes. Oh, I see. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've got a very nice from Ascension Glossary. I just pulled it in, so that might tie in. I just like to summarize, maybe just one sentence. Tara and Tiamat were companions in a binary star system. Binary star systems are common in ascending planets with advanced races. Tiamat's explosion and destruction is the reason our 3D Earth planet has an artificial satellite placed by the moon chain lineages, which is our moon. And I think, Sonia, you wanted to talk about moon chain, because moon chain lineages are the ones that are very linked to sexual misery. So I just thought I'll give you this link to moon lineages, because it's linked. You see, it's linked. The Tiamat's explosion was the reason why we needed a satellite, an artificial satellite brought here, the moon, yeah, that housed those moon chain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good point. Okay, then a little bit more information. So it leads right into the moon chain. So the moon chain lineages, or refugees from exploding planets in our solar system, or cast-offs from other evolutionary cycles, and warring controller forces of Nibiru, exploded Tiamat into bits. Okay, just like with Tara, they did this with Tiamat, and as we just learned from Trinity, you had said that they're the sister planet. More advanced civilizations, they sometimes had this binary planetary system.
Yes, binary star system.
Binary star system, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so they exploded Tiamat as well. And what I've learned, okay, is that when they did that with her, they used her female essence to force her to birth creatures in reversal anti-life formats. And so this instigated a shift to patriarchal domination. It's electron distortion that was exploited by the false king of tyranny and the imposter spirit. And again, we're talking millions of years ago, okay? This is way back, okay? This is where it started, right? And then we see that the explosion and manipulation of Tiamat is where the sexual misery and misogyny started playing out in all of its forms. So hatred, misogyny, hatred of the female form, hatred of the female essence, of the sacred feminine, of the Holy Mother. Okay, this is the sexual misery and misogyny playing out in all of its forms. And the explosion is related to the destruction of the Sophianic body and the inability of hierogamic union or Christos Sophia consciousness to incarnate in human forms on the 3D planet. So all of this is related to that. This is where it was no longer possible. And this is also the source causation timeline of forced breeding programs and the loss of freedom for women to consciously participate with the choice of pregnancy and birth. And I wanted to reiterate that the moon chain lineages have been directly involved both karmically and technologically with purposefully creating sexual misery programming in the human race during this dark age in order to harvest the maximum amount of human sexual energy for their explicit use. So we have talked about Loosh before, different forms of Loosh, but one of the favorites of the intruder races is the sexual energy because it's so powerful. So there's a pause there. I'm wondering if either of you wanted to add anything else to that.
It's a vast subject. I think I'll leave it there for now. We can touch upon it.
Yeah, the same.
Okay. So then moving on, we can now say that sexual misery has various related tentacles. Okay. It's not just one thing related to, you know, sexual intercourse. No. It's got a variety of tentacles. And I'll name a few of those, and there are more. You know, this isn't just you know, in and of itself everything. But sexual misery was created, okay, to distort, manipulate, and abuse sexual energies, in a nutshell, right? Therefore, the spiritual energies. So it's the sexual energies, therefore the spiritual energies in human beings incarnated on this planet. Okay, sexual misery is to relegate sexual activity laced with guilt and shame into the lowest forms of human expression and perversion possible. Okay, we can think of things. We can think of what you've got: pedophilia, satanic ritual abuse, all forms of sexual abuse, what, child trafficking, you know, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, if you can think of anything else, this is the perversion, right?
The religious shame and guilt they put on
Yes.
sex. Is it not
Guilt, yeah.
natural? You have to just be a breeder.
Yes.
All very anti-women, anti-feminine, anti-life.
So true.
Anti-organic sacred sexual pleasure and ecstasy.
Yeah.
You're not allowed. No.
Not allowed. Not allowed.
No.
And if you do feel anything like that, it's like, oh, how shameful! How dare you? Right? I mean, that's what I went through. I mean, it's so deep, and it's very filthy. It's very not true, but this is what has happened. A few more things. So this sexual misery has severely damaged the natural balance that exists between female and male principle, anti-hierogamic union again. You know, just kind of summing up what you both said. Collecting and distributing sexual loosh, L-O-O-S-H, loosh, into the satanic Moloch networks, whereby the sexual abuse and violence begins at birth to childhood, beginning very young. We've talked about that before too, but that's where they target the children, because if you can, I would say, it's easier to program a child than it is an adult who's already set in her or his ways. You start as young as possible, and children are very vulnerable. They're very open. They trust adults. You know, they need someone to guide them. You start as young as possible. And that's why the sexual abuse and violence begins at such an early age. And then the last thing I've got here is sexual misery is to serve the current societal paradigm into distortions. So whatever a certain culture's belief is, that is intensified, and if there's a distortion, the distortion is intensified to support the sexual misery programming. And we've got a few examples. We've got in Muslim countries, it can be legal to kill a raped woman by leaving her in the desert to die by their own husband. Now, I don't know if that still happens. It could happen. I mean, we've got some crazy shite happening on this planet. So it wouldn't surprise me if that still happened right now to this day. But I mean, we've got the golden eagle grid distortions, okay, over in that area. There's some really crazy stuff that goes on there. But, you know, I'm not being judgmental. I'm just saying, but it's happening planet-wide. We've also got in other areas of the planet selling little girls or little boys into prostitution in Thailand. Does it just happen in Thailand? Of course, no, it does not. But I mean, this was one example that it does. It has been remotely viewed that it does happen in Thailand, but it happens other places too, in other global locations, okay? We've got the Catholic priests, pedophilia in the Vatican, Okay, we've known that to be going on. We've got sadistic or masochistic fetishes in Germany. Now, I'm sure that that happens worldwide too. I mean, it's an epidemic now. I mean, it's everywhere, right? But I mean, there was one example that it was remotely viewed in Germany, okay? Just so that the examples are given so that we can understand that it's a global issue. And all of the harvested Lush energies feed back into the Nephilim reversal grid, which is headquartered in the 11th dimensional stargate or planetary gates located in the Stonehenge area in the UK. And are there any comments that you want to add on that?
I mean, that's just very self-explanatory. I mean, yeah.
Okay, so now we're towards the last section of our Sexual Misery podcast today. And I'd like to introduce Trinity, who is going to share her personal stories about sexual misery, and possibly some tips that she's learned along the way to assist her with her rehabilitation and healing. And Linda and I, of course, will chime in as well with that. So please take it away, Trinity.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say I'm quite a private person. I don't really sort of like putting things to public too much, especially when it comes to sexual misery and stuff like this. I was brainwashed, like we said at the beginning, you know, keep it all quiet and be shameful. So for me, it's a big deal that I am going to do this because I know it's going to help people. It's going to help me. So I just want to say that it took me time to prepare for it, and I've got little notes here on the side just to keep me on track. But I know for a fact that there will be times when I will just try to dissociate, you know, so I just want you to bear with me, and I'll hopefully be able to bring myself. But it'll be interesting for you also to observe, because dissociation is one of the mind control techniques that is done as part of MK Ultra mind control. And it has been done on me, but so I'm very good at dissociation. So I'm getting better at catching myself when I do that, but still there will be occasions maybe where I will do that. So bear with me at that point. All right. So so as we mentioned, as Sonia mentioned and Linda, and we all chimed in, the purpose of Sexual Misery program is to steal organic sexual pleasure from us, pervert sacred sexuality, humiliate, abuse, desecrate the female and male. You know, of course, more the female. They hate the female, but males as well also suffered much in this. Yeah, so basically prevent this organic unity or synthesis of those two energies, of male and female energies, because male and female energies, when they are united, they're very powerful. It's could be linked to rod and staff, or it is like rod and staff uniting and creating almost like a connectivity directly to the source. So when we are united and synthesized, well, male and female are synthesized, we have absolutely direct access to the source. And we can also power our Merkaba, our light body can then almost have wings and be able to traverse different dimensions. So having this synthesis of male and female is very important, and hence it was very it was on the agenda of alien forces to separate that, to bring as much misery into it as possible, so that the female and male, and as Sonia said, the electron and proton distortions of the female and male are reversed, so that we can never connect and unite and have our wings, so that we can travel through different dimensions. So this is the purpose. So for me, obviously it started early in life, and usually it does start early in life, because the earlier, the more perceptive we are, the easier the programming works. So the way it started for me is that I incarnated into a family that had a distortion already between the parents. So the parents were not able to be a unified sort of female-male couple. They already had their own reversals and distortions. So as a child, I felt that, and I couldn't bond, you know, the bonding was distorted for me. So the parent-child bond was distorted and reversed. And because I couldn't bond to my parents, naturally, I had to find other bonding figures. And of course, a lot of it, you know, I started bonding to some kind of astral beings in astral dimension. So that was very interesting, that the mind control which was happening with me was almost happening on the level of astral dimension and on the level of societal death culture that was existing at the time. I wasn't able to absorb a lot of nurturance from my parents. So this is what usually happens. This parent-child bond reversal and distortion makes the children disrupt their natural development. And this is where the trauma begins. So it's like the child needs to bond, and the child bonds not to parents, and doesn't feel safe. And this is where also sort of the child learns to dissociate and create different alters, because the child doesn't feel safe. So this is all sort of started for me very early. My parents were very traumatized themselves, so I felt like almost I had to carry them, their emotions. I was almost had to parent them and look after them from a very young age. And that created also quite a difficult situation, because again, they bonded to me, but I couldn't bond to them as a child, so I had to bond to someone. Another thing that happened is the ancestral binding. I came into the family where there were already existing bindings in place, so that somehow these bindings will become activated with me. So I suspect I was violated in a very young age by one of my family members in order to activate that binding. And I suspect that it was to do with Jehovah, Tothian Anunnakis group collective. From what I can, from the pieces that I have managed to collect and, you know, already research and see and feel, I feel that this group is responsible for a binding on one part of my family. So in a way, I was basically handed into them from a young age for grooming and brainwashing and control. Probably I wouldn't rule out some abductions going on at that time, but again, I don't remember exactly. I can just speculate at this point. But I definitely know that the activated, the passing on of I was passed on to these handlers via that event that took place, the violation event, sexual violation event that took place when I was very young by a family member. Obviously, being born in former USSR, which is the very militaristic type of country at the time, very much strictly mind control, very patriarchal societal engineering of all these kind of macho males. Again, it was also interfering with the parent-child bonding and interfering with the normal development. So I was very scared. I was very always, again, this feeling of safety didn't exist in the family, but it also didn't exist in the society. Everything was very almost like militaristic, controlling, authoritarian, you know, orders. You grow up like in this military camp almost. So if you're sensitive, it's very difficult to preserve that sensitivity. So you start developing different alters to protect that. And this is how the mind becomes split, how you lose that integrity of your mind. So yes, a lot of that was perceived. I'm talking now, this is age probably, this is kind of the background. So we have bindings, we have parent-child bond, PTSD parents, social engineering, And then in some ways, sadly, even my parents, to some degree, were the handlers for negative alien agenda. So it's like, because they were so traumatized and they had their own bindings, somehow these alien agenda or aliens were able to manipulate through them and groom me in a certain particular direction for them. So this is very sad. I don't blame my parents. As I said, they were the children of the Second World War, so they had their own PTSD and trauma to deal with. They had their own fragmentation of the mind. But it's just, in some ways, I felt that the way how they were bringing me up was so convenient. It's almost like they were given a book by negative aliens, and they were just all this sexual misery. You know, my mother was very puritanic, and like a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of like repression, sexual repression. You know, so it's like a lot of sexual misery was already, they were already living it. And then of course, as I mentioned, negative aliens as handlers as well, because, you know, somehow I was taught this mind control skill of dissociation. You know, I'm very good at dissociating, and through the trauma, from not being able to bond to my parents, I taught myself very early in life to be able to dissociate and create these various alters that, again, you know, those who would like to manipulate me via the astral dimension, it will be very easy for them, because I was so disconnected. My mind was already so kind of existing in so many different parts. So that was all happening sort of, we're talking age from 0 to 4, not to 5. It's already all been set in motion. So once the scene was set, they started grooming me from sexual siphoning, and with me, because I was probably so good at dissociating, and I was so willing to be a good girl. I was willing to please. I was willing to be obedient, not just, you know, this is my personality. This is how my psyche was. I was accommodating my parents, trying to help them, being an eldest child, and so I was very eager to please. So the grooming for sexual siphoning started for me again via the diversion of my emotional energy as a child. So they would somehow bring people into my life, other family members, which will have a very strong seducer energy on them. And as a child, because I already was violated, I will be in some ways already sexually open. We know all psychosexual stages of development. All children go through this 5-6 stages of development in their childhood, and it's a normal thing, you know, when we sort of explore a little bit sexuality. But in my case, it was all happening, looking back now, I see, you know, it wasn't normal how it was happening in my case. It wasn't just normal psychosexual stages where you just normally innocently explore what's going on there. But it was a little bit more to it, because I had this very strong fixations on this strong seducer figures, members of my family, who then, what aliens did is that they created, somehow I was able to have, you know, sometimes you have fantasies, or you have this kind of invisible friends where you just talk to them, and it's all, you're living it all in your imagination. So they were able to siphon somehow. They were, through this seductive members of family, they were almost like hooks. They will hook me, my emotional body, and I will divert my emotional energy and attention to that specific fantasy, imagining them maybe like hugging me, or maybe being with me because I felt so lonely, or I felt so unsafe with the parents, so I needed that attachment figure. So I will imagine that in my imagination, and this is how I was trained to redirect my emotional and sexual energy to the astral. So I was groomed to create the pathway where, instead of in a later time enjoying organic sexuality on a physical plane, I wouldn't be doing it. What I'd be doing is diverting it directly to the astral, to the reversal grids, you know, energy grids, Stonehenge and all, for their loosh. So this is what I realized how it's been happening with me. And of course, you know, they wanted me to have as much guilt, as much shame about it. So here we go. So first I'm violated. Then obviously I have this interest in sexual sort of, you know, I have these seductive figures, seductive family members, you know, usually maybe a little bit older than me, males, who I would sort of perhaps fixate on. And then this is how then they start sort of siphoning the loosh, creating, putting these thoughts into my head. But for me, it was then guilt and fear and like, you know, so I had no idea that was normal or not normal. It, you know, as a child, I carried that amount. This is how the sexual energy was beginning to become perverted or reversed, or like connected to something which is shameful, something which I have to hide under the table, something that I had to like feel very guilty about, and not allow myself to express it, only in my fantasies. So this is the astral, this is what I call the astral siphoning. So anything else you would like to chime in and clarify anything? Am I making sense? I'm trying, you know, I'm still myself in the process of clarifying that for myself. So.
Well, that makes sense, Trinity. Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so basically it's like, so first of all, they kind of take you away from your parents. The bond is, you know, not there. Then they send you these seductive figures, you know, family members. Then obviously there is the violation at the beginning, and then you have this kind of, you grow up with a sense of shame, guilt, and that sex is something horrible and you shouldn't be doing it. Or if you are, you should be hiding somewhere, and it's not really something that you should be enjoying. It's much easier to just perhaps go into your fantasy, disconnect, and go into some kind of reality bubble. I also have a suspicion here that that maybe, from what I know now, there may be some cloned portions of me that were utilized as a child prostitute on some holographic sort of levels in some phantom reality systems. Because when I look back, especially again, when I look back when I was about 6, 7, we're saying preschool age, and even maybe early school, before puberty, I remember that I was able to flirt, like what I understand now is, I didn't know at the time that was I was doing, but looking back now, I see that I was able to flirt with men. I'm not saying random men, I'm just saying like friends or family, or, you know, and certain, you know, like I was pretending, you know, we were dancing and I will pretend, but the movements that I was doing, they were like, a flirtatious movement, like a grown-up woman will be doing if she was dancing in some kind of intimate dance with her male. And I'm thinking, I'm a child. Now, looking back, I'm thinking, where did I learn this? Where is it coming from? I've never seen any movies. Nobody taught me this. So that puts me to the trail of thought. I'm thinking that perhaps, as above, so below, some portions of me were cloned and utilized as a child prostitute. It's a horrible thing to think, and I would like it not to be true, but I am currently exploring and investigating that as well, as part of this sexual misery, intimidation and assault that negative aliens have done and are still doing.
Yeah, you know, when you mention, you know, the cloning, for our listeners, you know, just a bit of information, you know, creating bodies in labs using our DNA to create clones. And then what happens is, although it sounds sci-fi, the more courageous we are in our willingness to go down the rabbit hole. How deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go to understand what's really happening on this planet? So we're going to start to understand all of these things that actually do happen. They do have they, meaning the negative alien agenda, human, non-human participants, shadow government, shadow military, underground military bases, etc. This is where all these things are happening. The cloning going on, stealing of the DNA to create clones. And then what happens is the clones can then affect us as well, because there's a piece of our DNA in there which can have an impact on our consciousness now. I wanted to clarify that part for the listeners. And I also wanted to say what came to me too when you're talking is, based upon my own experience with sexual misery, is that cloning, yes, for sure, you know, of course that can be a possibility. And for myself, they absolutely are doing their thing with me on the inner planes, because if we remember that we're multidimensional beings, we have all of these aspects of ourselves, okay, then we will understand that they can be manipulating other aspects of ourselves, and we don't necessarily have memories of that. We know something's wrong. You know, maybe we can feel something's wrong, or maybe we can't. This is the amnesiac barriers. This is the mind wiping. This is you know, a possibility of it happening to other aspects of ourselves, other stations of identity, and other timelines. It's also something also that has happened to me is astral rape, whereby myself, you know, would go to sleep. I mean, it happens. It doesn't happen so much now, but it was happening, and certainly as a child. This is part of what happens when the child splits, when there's the alters that are created from the possession, from the abuse. And when you go to, you know, you might be one personality in the waking state, but then when you go to sleep in the astral realm, okay, and you pretty much become unconscious. They have their hooks in you, they have their hooks in me, and they do all kinds of manipulation tactics. And this is where you get the astral rape. This is where you get the astral prostitution. You've got all kinds of sexual misery on all levels. I can just imagine what they're doing. And of course, they wipe our minds from this so that we don't see a lot of this. That doesn't mean it's forever wiped. To me, I'm going to get my memories back, and I'm going to find out what they did. But I just wanted to add that, because if there is, you had mentioned, Trinity, you said, you know, where did I get the idea to, as a little girl, to act like a grown woman flirting with these adult men? And to me, what came to me is, that's the grooming. That's what they do to children, to groom them. They groom them as children, and it is unnatural. It's unnatural for a little girl to have these adult thoughts, but they're not necessarily your thoughts, or whoever it's happening to. The entities have the ability, with their advanced psi abilities, to project thoughts into the compromised mind, okay? The mind that has been possessed, the mind that has alters, the mind that has sexual fantasies because she split off because of the troubled parents, because of the lack of bonding. So, right? So the implanted thoughts come in. You think that they're your thoughts, but they're, from my experience anyway, I can only speak for myself, they're not my thoughts. They're the entities coming in. It's possession. For me, it was possession. They were able to come in. They were right in my field. And they just have the ability to alter the mind like that. And this is where, to me, that's what came up for me when you were saying, when you're dancing with a man or whatever, and you're acting like an adult woman. That's the conditioning. That's the sexual misery when they're starting at a very young age, programming the little girls, the little boys, to grow up to be dysfunctional adult women, adult males, playing out the false king of tyranny, the dark mother, and playing out all these sexual misery patterns as victim and or victimizer.
Well done. Well, thank you, Sonia. That's very well summarized. And yeah, you're absolutely right. And as you were saying it, again, something was clicking in there thinking, yeah, definitely, because it was like the altar was taking over, and the possessed and then the entities were able to enter the altar and give me not just thoughts, but the behavior. I knew what to do. I knew where did I know how to do things? So there must have been some entity that was possessing me at the time to actually come through and guide my body even to do. It wasn't anything sort of sexual, but it was very flirty and very, you know, definitely seductive. That obviously people saw. It's just funny, you know, the friends and the family say, oh, this is just as funny. It was just like a cute little funny thing. But looking back now, I think, no, it wasn't funny. It was exactly what you said. It was grooming me into this kind of a sexual seductress, which is the dark moon chain type, a lunar type of female who would be using seduction techniques and then creating loosh, because obviously you seduce the male becomes aroused and then goes and masturbates somewhere, and here we go, loosh has been done. You know, you've created a loosh for these entities. Now they're going to go and siphon that male, and they use me to be a participant in that game. So this is what I was groomed. I was groomed to be a seductive female who would go and who would sort of flirt with the males, and then males will, and I was totally unaware. I was totally unaware of all this on a conscious level, but obviously the mind was already split, and that was what was going on the deeper layers. So this is how they operate. And now obviously we see it's all done through media, how the sexualization of children is so early in life, you know, the high heels, the makeup for the girls, you know, gee, I mean, it's just how far do you want to go with this? So for me, basically the first sort of say 7 years of my life, that was when then all these programs were inserted, all this kind of the original kind of shame and guilt and like sort of programs, sexual misery, all that has been inserted. My mind was groomed to become pliable, to be able to sort of connect to the astral very quickly via imagination, so that they can siphon. They didn't even have to do anything. You could just go via the imagination and it'll create bodily changes for them to siphon. So in a sense, that was basically what was their plan to bring, and in a sense, because of the early violation in my life, I had, obviously when you're violated so early in life and you're a helpless child, when that happens, your memory still remembers what happened, and you felt very helpless, and you felt a lot of rage. That's how I felt. I felt rage and I felt helpless, and it was a male. So I carried also, since young age, a lot of hatred for male. Do you see how clever that is? Straight away, everything I said, plus hatred for a male. So not only I'm going to be seducing males, but I'm also going to be hating them, because I've never dealt, and I don't remember I was violated at a very young age, and I wouldn't know where that hate is coming from. So very cleverly done, very skillfully, I must say. And of course, also carrying, linking the sexuality with shame, which actually is a normal thing for all children. Psychosexual stages of development, have a look if you don't know, listeners online. It's very normal for children to go through the stages, but obviously not many of us negotiate them harmoniously, okay? So this is where we all get traumatized sexually. And this is where the disgust, fear, and guilt of sex, or some other, maybe sexual, maybe on the other side, another polarity, maybe too much sex, too much fixation on sex happens if it's not been harmoniously negotiated. And then, of course, when puberty comes, all that has been set in motion in the first 7 years gets entrenched deeper during puberty. So it's kind of like the ground is set during the first 7 years of life. And then we enter what Freud called the latent stage, where we're not interested in sexual nothing. We're just like doing other pursuits until puberty. And then in puberty, we have the next stage there, which is so this is where we have in other sexuality awakening coming in, and another layer of exploration and learning.
Right.
So this is for me. So here I am by the age 7. I have a lot of confusion. I have already hate for males. I already have a lot of guilt about sex. Here sexuality. Here we have this superimposed karma, superimpositional forces. So I've been violated by somebody in the family, and I'm carrying the guilt rather than them taking responsibility or the forces who are behind it. It's all now on me. I now also am carrying the superimpositional forces of all. It's like I'm being a karmic exhaust. I'm almost being like the dumping ground for all this karmic exhaust on myself and carrying it as a child on myself.
So they did that probably to also, I would say, create more of a pressure on you on top of everything that you've gone through.
Yes.
Isn't it so, to keep you locked into that? Doesn't it make it even more difficult to even make sense of anything?
Yes, and also it eroded my sense of self, because at that point I'm thinking, gosh, I am so like horrible, I'm so like dirty, I'm so rotten, I'm so like, you know, I can't even tell anyone about this because this is so disgraceful. So they kind of locked me in this very kind of in a box where I couldn't ask for help. I couldn't talk to anyone. I have to basically somehow create more altars to be able to exist and to protect myself. So this is what happened. I started creating different altars, different altars, in order to help my core survive in that. Very lonely, very isolating. I had a very good friend that was probably my savior from my years. But still, you know, only one friend, but we have all this pressure, you know, having all that pressure. So yeah, needless to say. So it was important for them that I somehow, in my case, I'm not saying this is in everyone's case, but in my case, for some reason, they did not want me to engage and enjoy organic sexual pleasure. So they somehow needed me to stay a virgin for as long as I could, for as long as possible. And now I understand why. Maybe, again, this is something I'm putting the pieces together. But the reason why they wanted me to stay a virgin in hindsight is because they were preserving me as a breeder for their preferred bloodlines, possibly. So I had to basically be a pure, sort of physically non-touched before I would, you know, in order to then, you know, breed preferred, because my first husband was one of the bloodlines, Luciferian bloodlines. So this is just my speculation. I don't know for sure, but for me, it's like eureka moment. I see, okay, why it was so important to keep me in this astral siphoning, but not physically, so I'm not touched physically. If you have anything to add to this, if you have anything to say, do, but it's just my speculation at this stage.
Linda, do you have anything that you wanted to say? Okay, and well, one thing, jumping back to one thing that you had said, you know, when you were saying that when we reach puberty and then it opens us up into another awareness of sexuality, and you know, this is normal, right? What came to me when you said that is something that I went through, and I know this is tied in with, for myself, breeding programs. And again, this is something that has happened throughout history for our listeners. You know, you can research this as well, but breeding programs for women, and this is part of our galactic history, our very, very dark galactic history. that's happened. This has been something that's been wiped from our consciousness, but nevertheless happens. And not just in our galactic history from long ago. I mean, it happens every single day, every minute of the day, whereby we've got satanic ritual abuse going on with all the human trafficking and such, but not just in the physical realm, in any other realms of existence. And what I wanted to say is that I know that when I reached puberty, and it intensified and increased my, I would say, sexual behaviors, the deviance, the sexual behaviors. And now I was different than you in that my first sexual encounter was at age 14. And to me, that is way too young, but it's part of the sexual misery programming. I was absolutely programmed to do what took place, what happened. I was guided there. It's all programming, right? All part of the mind control, possession, etc. And so this opened me up for more and more and more of these distortions, not only on the physical, but in the astral. Okay, I had mentioned before, I was a mess. And I was basically taken over, and I feel like I was a breeder for them. Now, I don't have any more information on that for now. I can tell you that it probably happened in other timelines. I know for sure there was astral rape. There was all kinds of filthy shenanigans going on in the astral, because I witnessed them. I mean, that kind of stuff, much of it has been erased, and hopefully just temporarily, because I want my memories back. I want my fragments back. But I've witnessed them. I've witnessed astral rape as an adult, as a more, I would say, healed adult, you know, and you get taken off guard. And I've seen them do it, you know, in my later years. So I absolutely know they were doing horrendous stuff. And that leads me to my point in that when I reached puberty and I started menstruating, I had some of the most horrific, painful menstruations. And heavy flow and pain. And I intuitively know that that is tied in with the sexual misery programming in all of the distortions, in all of the, I would say, the forced, I don't know, the raping, everything that went on in the astral. It doesn't have to be just physical. Just remember, we're multidimensional beings. I know you both know that. I'm saying this for the listeners. In that, you know, all of what happens, you know, in all different stations of identity, timelines, in dimensions, whatever, what have you, wherever you're at, it affects us here in the physical. Everything's connected. And so I just wanted to add that when you said that it reminded me of my menstruation. So if anybody listening to this, you know, we're all connecting dots and putting pieces together. And if you remember, gosh, you know, my menstruation, yeah, it was hell on wheels. You know, I can remember that. I look back, and you might want to consider, you know, why was it like that? You know, your medical system is going to tell you, oh, it's this, and it's going to say this, but it's not natural. It's not natural. I will tell you from my own experience, and you make your own decision, of course, but it's not natural.
Yes, and considering that, as we know now, that age 12 is the age where the soul matrix, yes, so we have this, what we talked at the beginning about different harmonic triads, yes, so we have the personality matrix, the soul matrix, the monad matrix, yes, so the soul matrix is supposed to embody at age 12, or at least activate, not embody maybe, but at least start embodying at the age 12, and this usually coincides with puberty. Do you see how much distortion we all have, you know, groomed from childhood, so that our soul cannot activate at the age 12, which is to do with the heart, to do with the emotion. And this is why the puberty is such a huge time where you explore your emotions, and it's linked with sexuality, and it's, you know, it's celebrating that divine feminine coming into full, you know, flow, and celebrating these initiations for the males. And for us, it's all, you know, distortion, pain. Here we go. This is the reversal. Yes. Instead of having it as a joyous experience, we're all having heavy menstrual pains. We're having a lot of blood. We're having, you know, again, I could say the same for me for me, it was shame,
Yeah.
a lot of shame to do with this activity, you know, with this bleeding, and also very painful, uncomfortable, you know, something that is like dirty, and you know, of course, the church also tells you don't even come in, you know, you're banned even to get to certain parts of the church if you're bleeding, you know, or you have to, it's such BS, but we're all, you know, we're always subjected to that. So I can relate to that totally, what you've said. It's probably variation on the theme, but was different for us, but the same in a way. You know, it's kind of, I'm sure a lot of people could relate to that, painful periods, to sort of being very unhappy at that time. You know, all the traumas, lots of people have depression triggered in them at that time, because it's kind of like all the traumas, all the grooming in childhood gets like nailed even deeper and more. It's like, you know, grounding it even more, stamping it even more now, putting that greater imprint of suffering and distortion into our body. But also there is opportunity at the puberty to reverse that. There is a chance, if hypothetically, if I met a guide, if we had like a loving woman guide who would guide us and explain things to us, and perhaps be able to direct us in our female, stepping into our femininity at that time, it would have been different. But I never had such woman in my life. I never had such guide. So I had to do with what I had. And probably you the same, so all of us. So this is how these distortions. I remember that when puberty started, they also tried to put a gender reversal on me, because maybe also because of the country that I was growing up, which is very patriarchal, very kind of misogynistic. You know, males have the power and females still in the kitchen cooking, sort of thing. I think I always wanted more so to be a man. You know, I started hating the female. Do you see how interesting? I started basically, I am the female, but I started hating. The culture was prompting me to like shameful about my periods, hating. My mother will usually say things like, oh, you know, women, you know, they're dirty, you know, these periods is just, oh man, it's so much better for them, they're so lucky. And naturally you kind of, in my case, I wanted to be a man, and I explored different, you know, I dressed up like a boy. I went for a tomboy stage. I even tried to stick some cotton wool into my pants so that I could, you know, pretend that I'm like, it was a funny stage, but still looking back, you could see that it may be funny, but it wasn't funny, because again, it was instilling the hate for the feminine, and reversal, gender reversal, wanting me to be something other than what I am, wanting me to change, you know, wanting me to change my gender, reverse my gender, wanted me to identify as a male, which again, I know came from my trauma and came from all the grooming and their bringing, but
yeah.
So
it's like rejection of the sacred feminine. It's rejection of the Holy Mother. It's rejection of the female principle, which is what they've tried to hammer into all of us here on this planet.
Yes, and with it, rejection of my sexuality, rejection of my sexual organs. Again, they were very happy with me, because again, they would put the seducer into my path. So I will hook, again, my mind will hook on this seductive, some kind of, you know, classmate or whatever. And then that's it. They'll start siphoning me through my thoughts, you know. The sexual energy is rising, you know, this is puberty. You have a lot of sexual energy coming up, and it needs to be channeled somewhere. And some of it they siphoned from me, and they taken away connection to my sexuality from me, because by then I had so much guilt and so much shame, and I was already so disconnected from that part of me that it was just, you know, I wouldn't even go there. I wouldn't even go. I would be maybe having fantasies, but I wouldn't go anywhere near physical interaction on that score. And that created a huge imbalance and schism within me, huge imbalance. So I had to keep creating, like I said, I had to keep creating these altars who would somehow take care of that. Because intense energy was coming and rising, but it didn't have an outlet.
Right, right. For me, that reminds me of, I want to interject for a second, if you don't mind. It reminds me of when I discovered masturbation. Now, that's a word that in society people are like, ooh, nobody wants to talk about it, but nevertheless, everybody does it. And the issue with it, or the danger with it, is that when there is no context of anything to do with balance or integrity, and when we know that if there is loveless sex, if there's a loveless release of sexual energies, this is where the entities reside. This is what happened to me. So when you talk about there needed to be a release because you've got the natural functions in your body at puberty, you know, there has to be some kind of a release. Well, what do you do? And this is when I had a neighbor that had introduced me to that at around age 12, I think it was 11 or 12. I think it was 11 into 12 anyway. And yeah, so that's what happened. So it's not like the natural experimentation that maybe children go through these stages of development, but that's not what it was. That I wanted to make that very clear to people, because it's violating the body over and over and over again to have some kind of outlet, some kind of release. And you're absolutely, or I was, hoarded, and there's possession, and the entities had taken over my consciousness. There was no freedom, there was no free will, there's no, I respect my body, I feel love and I'm connecting with God. There was not one, you know, stitch of light in those interactions, and that's the danger. So I just wanted to mention that when you said there needed to be an outlet, you know, for me, it was the masturbation, and yeah, so.
Yes, for me, obviously, I couldn't do that because I was totally disconnected from that part of me. So that manifested itself as huge tension. I was very tense, you know, I was like a ball of tension, because obviously that energy, part of it was sublimated, part of it was siphoned for the astral, but there was still a lot of it. We're talking puberty, it's like a huge onslaught of it all. So I carried a lot of tension, and I had to somehow like constantly, and I remember at some point I used to go dancing, and that was like a God savior for me, because at least I could physically release, because obviously sexual energy is the second chakra, second chakra. So via the dancing, via the physical activity, it was at least some relief for me to release that energy. But a lot of it was very suppressed, like repression, suppression, all that. This is my path, was a path of repression, a path of suppression, which created tension and disconnection. The more I was disconnecting from my body, I was disconnecting from my feeling, from my heart. I always had broken heart because I always get the seducers who I fall in love with. It's all done on the sort of, you know, imagination level. Nothing ever materializes physically. There is frustration building up. It's like I was like a bomb, you know, looking back. Very, very miserable existence at the time, but should have been a happy existence, like for you as well, Sonia. So it was just like another extreme. From you, it's an extreme, but as miserable, as unhappy. So the organic pleasure was stolen. My connection to my sexuality was stolen from me. I wasn't interested in sex as such. I was interested in basically flirting, or, you know, maybe creating that sort of, what do you call it? They call it, I don't know, when you mind fuck, excuse my language. But it was more like everything happening here, but nothing's happening physically. Males who were sort of, I was encountering, they were very frustrated because I was giving very mixed messages, unaware, you know, I was unaware. I was giving them mixed messages and they were reading them as such and then becoming frustrated, and I had a few problems as well, like them lashing out on me, and I couldn't understand why. So do you see how all this kind of lack of boundaries, lack of understanding, awareness of my own body, of my own processes, you know, whilst negatives are siphoning me via the astral. It's a very unhappy time.
How old were you at that point?
No, this is I would say between like 13 to about 18. So like this is the puberty. So 13 to 18, I would say. And then things started getting a little bit easier. Sort of I was able to be involved in more things. I still, you know, I still was a virgin. I still wouldn't do anything. But at least it was not as intense. I think the main puberty was like those years. And of course, you know, it interfered into my relationship because after 18, I started sort of trying to, I was so pent up. I was so like full of shame and guilt that I had very brief encounters that were not at all like Sonia, you said, they were not loving. They were just, on some ways, just to help me release that energy. So there was not at all, it wasn't a matter of love. It was just a matter of like getting myself into situations where I end up just like, you know, not even having any sexual encounters, but just like a bit of, you know, foreplay or something just to release a little bit that energy, but nothing. I wouldn't, you know, go all the way because of all the fear, insecurity, and, you know, shame and guilt and all other misery that was laced. I was very scared. So that created this kind of, I remember feeling, what's wrong with me? You know, what was wrong with me? It's kind of, again, eroded my sense of self and feeling that something's wrong with me. So, and then I obviously married into my first husband and had a child, and that was when I lost my virginity. But this is when I said that probably that's why I had to stay virgin, maybe to be pure, to stay pure in order to be a breeder, a suitable breeder for a specific bloodline. And then I had a few relationships, but the significant relationship that I would like to mention that is directly linked to all the grooming that happened with me for a young age was the encounter with the Anunnaki hybrid later in life, when I encountered that it was a soul partner, it was a soul mate, as you can call it, a soul dark night of the soul union kind of integration process, but it was very, very hard for me. It gave me a lot of dark arts training and a lot of pain, but it had to happen maybe to a degree. But that was a very painful encounter because that person was totally possessed, also traumatized, also obviously a hybrid, so hybridization. There was human there, but there was also a very strong Anunnaki Thothian, a black magic great Anunnaki person. And I remember that at that point, when I was in that relationship, all I could think about is Atlantis. I wasn't even part of the ES community. I didn't know much about Atlantis, but at the time, from some depths of my memories, I knew that that was Atlantean timeline, reliving of that. And the dynamic that happened between us was very much probably repeated itself. And I remember thinking, what am I doing? I'm going in the past timeline. Why am I going in this past timeline? I've already done with it. Why am I going back there into that insanity, that abuse, that desecration, that humiliation? So obviously, the part of the Anunnaki hybrid male who was interacting with me, the Anunnaki obviously wanted to destroy my heart, to further corrupt me, I think, to corrupt me and to break my heart, because it was very difficult. I sincerely felt very strong connection to him, very, very heart-based, soul-level connections. So we are talking about the Tara, which is the 5D, yes, the Tara. So there was very much a 5D sort of soul level connection I experienced there, but at the same time seeing that amount of darkness and false king of tyranny and abuse and dominion and you know, alpha male type of you know, abuser, full-blown alpha male abuser, and me being that child, you know, who is just naive and like a lamb on a slaughter. So this is where I had to basically come face to face with my disassociation. I had to basically come face to face with the fact that the altar that I have created, that confident woman, was a fake, in a sense that it didn't have any substance, because there were lots of fragments, and that relationship showed me the degree to which the pain in which those fragments existed. Obviously, if I were fully integrated, no way I would ever attract that type of Anunnaki hybrid into my existence. It was a full-blown shadow reveal. So anything that I ever wanted to hide, that relationship brought to light. So that's the positive side of it. It's like, I was so scared to look into my shadow. I was so scared to look at the fragments. I left it as long as I can. But then this person comes into my life and basically like rips all the layers to put me face to face with my pain, with those fragments, and start healing my trauma. So in some ways it was very dark, it was very abusive. I still shake. I mean, I'm still not, I still remember, and I have like a shake inside me. What's the word? It was like a tsunami. It was like a huge disaster, weather disaster. But on some level, I'm grateful, because it taught me a lot. And after that relationship, I could never go back into my dissociative state of, pretending, everything's fine. I could just go along with my persona to the world and hide everything else. I could no longer hide. So it was quite a cathartic. So in some way, I'm very grateful to that person. But in some ways, yeah, sometimes I feel it could have been done a bit better than that. I mean, it didn't have to cause so much suffering, because aliens, negative aliens had a lot of loosh, huge amount of loosh from me at that time. They siphoned me significantly. So, and I remember that it left me with a permanent residue of, it's like, when you come to contact with something which is quite corrupt, it corrupts a part of you. So I feel that there are certain parts of my personality matrix that have been corrupted. I'm not sure, probably my soul matrix may be intact, and I could sort of deal with my soul matrix, but my personality matrix on one, the elemental matrix, something's been corrupted following that relationship, which I am not sure I'll be able to clear in this life. I don't know. I mean, maybe somebody will tell me otherwise, but at this stage, I feel that it's a permanent corruption, but it's only for the physical, not hopefully for the soul level. So this is like, again, I'm sharing what I'm feeling in honesty. That's it kind of, I paid the price for that. It was cathartic, but the price was this element of corruption. It's like it left a residue within me, which I hope I might be able to clear, but I haven't yet been able to clear it.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Linda, did you want to say anything before I say anything? Okay. When you say that, I wanted to say something real quick before I forget, because it's important, something that came up when you were speaking. I wanted to validate that consciousness can be altered. This is speaking from my own experience, and from what I'm hearing from you. It happened to you, and you're explaining how it affected your, possibly, your personality and your soul, etc. You're putting the pieces together still, but I just wanted to say that to clarify for our listeners that consciousness can be altered. That's the game. That's what they do. So if you come out of something and you feel like you've been altered, well, you have been. You have been. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be a forever thing, but But consciousness can be altered. That's the game they play. That's why they do it. That's why they start young. They're molding people. This is the distortions. This is why the possession. This is why the implants. I mean, it's horrific to think about. I mean, it's just so painful. But nevertheless, this is the reality. It is better to have an understanding about these kinds of things, though, because we can take back our power. And I wanted to say that here, this might be a little pinpoint of hope. You can take what resonates, but yes, they did. Also, I'll use myself as an example. Yes, they did what they did to me, but I will say this: when I started coming forward with my information, when I started documenting, blogging, journaling, and when I started physically verbalizing what happened, coherency came. Because with all this trauma, we split off. And so when I started coming forward, and I will say that it was a painful process and it took time and there's layers. But I just kept working at it, and I kept working at it. And suddenly the blocks in my throat chakra, or the fifth center, or the fifth body, this is our voice, our willpower. Okay, that was completely shut down. They shut me down. They had silenced me. But when I incrementally came forward, and it was sloppy, and it wasn't a smooth process. But when I incrementally did that, it started to come together and come together and to come together. And my personality started to heal. Things started to heal, is what I'm trying to say. Now, I can only speak for myself. I'm just saying that the more we have the courage to come forward and speak the truth, and, keep feeling into our heart with the truth spirit, and allowing that to guide us, and not the BS that's all around us. The truth spirit, what is the core deepest part of our being? What is it trying to tell me? Is this okay? Is this love? Is this kindness? No, it's not. Okay, then I'm rejecting that. Get away. You're not allowed in, etc., etc. Trying to give an example here. So that's when the coherency started coming in, speaking my truth. So I just wanted to offer that perhaps that might happen for you. The more you speak your truth, the more these fragments come back, and the more the personality starts to heal. That's what happened for me. So.
Thank you, Sonia. I think you're right. And I think, like, for me, even like speaking up like this, honestly, is quite cathartic, because it's putting, like you said, coherence comes when you express that honestly and openly. So, and as I speak, I could see more links, more associations, and maybe see more. So yeah, definitely. I agree. I think it's being able to, being willing, or at least, like you said, documenting. It doesn't have to be in front of the audience, but just documenting it, writing it, or doing something is helpful, is cathartic. It's helping us to validate that. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And yes, I feel consciousness can be altered, yes, but in terms of corrupting us, I feel that there is a layer of us that could never be corrupted. And I know, no matter how much this negative aliens are trying to, whatever they're trying to do to corrupt, they cannot corrupt that part of us. So that is a message of hope. And the physical body, it's a vessel. It's in this density, and it's gonna go to dust one day. So and it is being worked on as we speak, in terms of re-encryption, and in terms of various guardians assisting us, Aurora assisting us in that. So there is always hope. There is always silver lining, and there is always, to finish on a positive note, to say that everything has a lesson, everything has some benefits, and an opportunity for us to alchemize it, to be an alchemist, to sort of alchemize everything that happens to us, whether it's dark night of the soul, to bring it to the higher potential. We all have that within us. And I look at my experience like that. Ability to alchemize, ability to grow, ability to sort of learn, get hands-on with it. So no fear. We need to be, ideally, try to be open and courageous. Not be afraid of dark nights of the soul, not be afraid. That's what I would like to say. So yeah, I think this is what I wanted to share. Maybe there will be more at some point, but this is as far as I managed to process myself, and I'm sharing that. So, I hope that the audience will find it useful, and it will be of help to some women or men to understand their own and put pieces together for themselves when they look at their own sexual misery program. So, is anything you would like to add that what helped you, maybe Sonia, Linda? I'm not at the moment, I haven't had a chance to sort of get deeply into how I managed to. I think for me it was a process of just balancing myself and learning, and time is a great healer. So, but is anything that you would like to add that helped you to heal sexual misery?
I can't think of anything at the moment.
I know one thing that came up for me is for people to consider bindings, satanic bindings on the soul, on the family bloodline, when going through the healing process. This is an aspect of possession of the bloodline and possession of my consciousness, my light body, and what I had to learn about during my rehabilitation process as part of the release, as part of the reclamation as well. You know what I mean? So that's what came to me. It's something important. This, and different for everybody, but that came to me as you were speaking, in considering that, we just need to, that might be some of the reason why these things happen to us. If, it's the possession. I mean, these entities, this is what they think that we're, their goal is to, possess people, and they think that we're like items to be purchased at a store, like we're to be used. We're to be used, right?
Yes.
And
yes, because they claim, they claim you from a young, they claim you as soon as you're born. It's like, that's it. There is some kind of covenant in there, and you're bound to a specific alien group. So yes, definitely. And there are some binding releases on the Ascension Glossary. What is it called? Return to Rightful Owner. Is it one of them? And there are some others that could be utilized. So yes, maybe we can put some links underneath the video. Well, I just want to say thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Linda, for holding space for me, for providing this compassionate witnessing, for me to be able to speak openly and feeling your love and not being afraid to be judged, or just really laying it all out in openness, transparency. And thank you both for holding that beautiful space for me, letting me speak and express. So thank you. Very grateful.
You're very
to
welcome.
You both.
You did awesome. So I just want to congratulate you, because you provided us so much amazing information that we can relate to for our own healing process as well.
I hope so. Yeah, well, thank you. And I hope so. I hope that the listeners will benefit too, because it's personal, but it's also collective. It's like we're all in this. Yeah, so every personal story is also a collective story, because there will be somebody who had probably exactly the same variation. Yeah. All right. So ready
as
to
always,
close?
thank you. Thank you for being, authentic and transparent. You know, as always, I learned so much from both of you, and just to be in this, you know, space together with sharing, I'm sure other people, you know, will enjoy sharing our journey with us too. So, and sexual misery part 3 will be my turn next. So yeah,
We'll hold you.
We will.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, it's all good. Bring it all out on the table. Yes. It's good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Hey, Linda, is that your feline that came up?
yes.
Did she say hi?
Yes.
I saw her tail go across. It was so cute. Is that?
Hi, everybody.
Cute.
Purring.
Oh, lovely picture.
Okay, well, goodbye from my cat Lulu, and goodbye from the 3 of us till next time. We will bring some more Ascension and Disclosure related topics, and we are glad you can be with us today. So as always, please take only what resonates and discard the rest. And we wish you, you know, take good care on your journey with lots and lots of love. And now I'm going to have the closing prayer. Okay, so let's take a nice deep breath and just coming into our hearts. Giving thanks to all that we have in our lives today, and all our loved ones. Beloved God and the eternal Christ families serving the law of one, please amplify our prayer request. As the avatars of Christ Sophia and the true spirit that we are, for one and for all, we pray for the sovereign rights of all humanity to be restored to God's natural laws on this earth. May all those that are awakening, feeling betrayed, feeling confused by this anti-human war that is playing out, we lovingly decree that their hearts are healed, their spirits reclaimed in the power of our Holy Mother and Father that has returned to this earth. May we all stand strong with love and with courage, bringing coherence to every level of our consciousness, remembering the truth of the infinite God spark that we are. We pray on behalf of the children. We pray that the human trafficking and the satanic ritual abuse and the harvesting of loosh end fully, completely and totally. Please free humanity of the enslavement and the entrapment from the psychopathic death cults. May the truth set us free as we serve the law of one, as we serve the law of love. In unity, we will prevail. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Until next time. Bye.
Until next time.